last ice on the lake had just melted away. As winter loosened its grip and give spring its way, and the cedars on shore were filled with the song of birds whose voices had been silent too long. The whole county rejoiced the return of the spring, with all of the hopes that the fine weather bring, and the grass near the shore was flushed, brilliant green. No, it was all so darn pleasant. But what couldn't be seen was that under the water lurked a sinister beast, awoken from slumber and ready to feast. The ground of teeth gnashed with hunger that needed to be fed, and its yellow eyes rolled in its hideous head. Yet on the lake's surface, not a ripple, not a wave, to reveal what lay below in an underwater cave. And now the stage is set for a tale most confounding. It's the tale of the monster of Lake on the Mountain. A monster, you say, at home in our lake. Doubting Thomases will surely cry, "Ha! It's a fake!" But listen up, friends, for you're about to be told of a creature as mysterious as this county is old. With the body of a serpent and a dragon-like face, the beast was said to dwell in this curious place, and had gobbled up a pesky tourist or three. So he wasn't all bad, if you ask me. Now, this all took place in the not distant past, and I swear it's all true, so don't even ask. To protect the innocent, I won't name any name, but odds are you'll know who they are just the same. There was a young girl, no taller than my shoulder, might have been 12 or perhaps a smidge older, and she lived in a cottage not far from the water, living the life of a fisherman's daughter. Now with her mother passed on, the child understood that her daddy took care of her best as he could, but there weren't as many fish as was back in the day, even beyond the cliffs in the once plentiful bay. Yep, the times were tough, pretty much all around. And with his fishing business all but run aground, the fisherman didn't know how much more he could take, and he spent his days sitting, just staring out at the lake. The girl's sole companion was a little dog called Flea. Oh. He was a comfort to her, as sure as can be. And they'd have long adventures in the wild, wild wood, and Flea would listen to her, as only a best friend could. Whole days they'd spend on the lake's pebbled bank with the girl skipping stones till the evening sun sank. And then they'd wander on home, Flea with a stick in his jaws, as the blue jays bid goodnight with their resonant caws. Now each night, her father, he would tuck the girl into bed, planting a kiss on the top of her head. And Flea would wag his tail. Flea'd wag his tail and jump up on the sheet. And after a few turns, he'd settle down at her feet. Night after night was always the same, until this one evening that just felt downright strange. The moon shone a cold light. There was a chill in the air, and when the girl hopped into bed, Flea wasn't there. Well, she jumped out of bed. She called her dog's name. No matter how she shouted, well, Flea never came. She looked all over the house, and her daddy helped too. They looked everywhere that they thought that Flea could have got to. Then a thought washed over her like a wave on the shore. He's gone to the lake! She cried and dashed out the door. Her father tried to stop her from running into the night. But the girl cried out, "Don't worry, Dad! I'll be all right!" She bounded through the woods. She knew each tree by heart. The moon slipped behind clouds. The night was pitch dark. She reached the shore and tripped. And falling on some stones, she landed right atop a pile of tiny little bones. Oh, the girl gasped aloud. She backed away in terror. No, this can't be her Flea. There must be some error. But then, amongst the bones, she saw Flea's little collar. And she heard a splash behind her as something stirred in the water. The girl's heart beat in her chest. She'd made a terrible mistake. She should have listened to her dad, not come down to the lake. She turned and saw the beast coming, a gleam in its yellow eye. And she whispered to herself, "I'm too young to die." She had places to go. I've got things to do. Why, I've got friends to make and puberty to get through. I've got lessons to learn and adventures to be had. And most of all, I can't bear the thought of leaving Dad. With all of her courage, the girl turned on the beast, who was licking his jaws as he moved in for his feast. "You don't want to eat me," she cried. "I'm no Happy Meal. But if you'll just give me a sec, I'll make you a deal." The monster paused and considered what the girl had said, and it drooled just a bit as it cocked its gross head. "I'm a great cook. I'll make whatever you wish. You just name it. I'll whip up your favorite dish." Now the girl's dad had taught her that violence was no solution. But there's times for obedience, and there's times for retribution. The girl thought of her father, and of her dog too, and she knew there was only one thing she could do. And while the monster was considering what she proposed, the girl wound up and punched the beast right in the nose. She'd seen on TV that sharks have sensitive snouts. Well, lake monsters do too. And the girl cried out, "A knuckle sandwich! That's the only thing you're going to be eating. Now get out of here quick, or shall we continue this beating?" Looking rather confused and not up for a fight, the monster slid under the surface and disappeared in the night. The girl was so relieved. She took a deep breath. She turned towards home. That's when she discovered she wasn't alone. She couldn't believe it. How could it be? It was her little dog Flea, just as alive as can be. Oh, she's so happy. Yeah, she shed a few tears. And Flea wagged his tail and got a scratch behind the ears. And they made their way home, so incredibly happy, agreeing they shouldn't mention this to her pappy. Well, the girl and her best friends their dog are best friends to this day. Though the girl's now a woman, and the dog has gone gray. And that night, with the monster, well, it don't keep her awake. but wild horses couldn't drag her back up to that lake. Well, the moral of this story? Well, there isn't much of one, except listen to your parents when all's said and done. And should you go wandering in the dark and the fog, do yourself a favor, keep a leash on your dog.